What's up, everybody? Happy Monday. Welcome to today's edition of Profits at Noon from Ninjacators. We're going to get started in just a minute here. We'll give everyone a chance to get in and get settled, and we'll jump into today's analysis with our levels to lock. Welcome, Judy, Neil, Shlomo, Jay. Great to see all of you. I hope you had a great weekend. Lonnie, welcome. It's great to see you. We're going to get started in just a minute here, everybody. I see people are still trickling in. We'll give everyone a chance to get settled, find their seats. Very cool. Have a pretty good crew coming together here. Good day to you as well, Lonnie. I hope you're well.
How's it going, Lonnie? All
It's
the
great to
familiar
see.
names.
Yeah, it's great to. I was just going to say, it's great to see these familiar names. I'm looking for my buddy Josh. Is he going to leave me hanging today? We'll see. Welcome, everyone. Again, we are going to get started in just a minute here. It is noon Eastern on the hour. This is our new weekly live event from Ninjacators. We are live 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday at noon Eastern. All right, it looks like our crew is holding steady. If anybody else is joining us, they're just going to be a minute late, and I will chastise them in the chat. Let's get things moving. Welcome again to today's edition of Profits at Noon. This is our new weekly live event where we're going to show you the levels that we are stalking for entry and steer you clear of the market traps and news bombs that could be waiting around the corner. So this means in addition to all the cool live analysis you're going to see from our great friend Richard Krugel today, we're going to give you actionable levels and trades you can follow along in real time. So you'll see these trades in action. You'll get to see the outcome. So we do encourage you to join us at the follow-up sessions. In addition to this, we hope to have some news very soon for our Levels to Lock newsletter that will accompany these sessions. So keep an ear and an eye out for that, and we will let you know. Additionally, I do want to quickly mention our special guest, Tony Edwards of Trader Smarts, is back in the house. So if you've joined us for previous sessions and you've seen what he's had to share, in addition to a very cool trade planning software he's going to show you that includes a very nice trial, he is also showing us a total of 7 trade setups. We've made it through 5, so today we'll have trade setup number 6 on deck for you. So I will check in quickly before Tony takes the reins after Richard is done with our analysis. And speaking of Richard, the man, the myth, the legend, King Richard Krugel is in the house here to guide us and host today's session. So he's going to jump into our analysis and those levels to lock. So without further ado, sir, I hand the reins to you.
Thanks, Nathan, and thanks everyone for joining us here today. I just quickly have to apologize for Thursday. We had a bit of a technical glitch. I was right here trying to get the session going, and then unfortunately something went wrong, something to do with the Zoom software. Don't ask me what it was, but it was a bit of a bummer, so I do apologize for that. But we are back again, and as always, we'll be going through all the markets on my side, and then I'll hand over the reins to Tony. And as always, guys, if you've got any questions, please feel free to ask in the chat box there, and I'll be more than happy to answer them for you. Again, before we do get started today, just a quick note that all information in today's session is provided for educational purposes only, and it's not an offer or recommendation to trade futures, stocks, options, or Forex. All right, let's jump into the charts here. I'm just going to put my video on off a little bit for the remainder of the analysis, and then I'll appear back a little bit later. All right, guys, it was a bit of a hectic week last week. VBS, this whole Credit Suisse thing, think like that. Those fears have subsided a little bit. Apparently, UBS taken over Credit Suisse. Maybe that sort of, calmed the fears in the market here a little bit. Obviously, we also have the federal funds rate coming out on Wednesday. That's at 2 p.m. Eastern time. So apparently, as the bigwigs would tell you, the Fed might be in a bit of a pickle this time around with regards to whether they should actually raise interest rates or, keep it on hold for a little bit, just to have all this sort of anxiety and fear in the market subside a little bit. So it's going to be interesting to see how things react to that economic news event or the federal funds rate on Wednesday. But up until then, we've obviously seen a really nice bounce. It's already started on, when was this? Yesterday. It was coming down pretty strong when the markets actually opened during the Sunday session. formed a nice sort of doji here on the ES, moved up. Price just made it over the day's pivot point at 3,963, and it's come extremely close to that projected range high, which is currently residing at 3,990 3/4. Now, again, if you guys have been following my analysis here, I've had this standard pitchfork slope to the downside here for quite a long time. I think the longest time Tony was here, we were actually talking, I think it was a Monday or something. When was this? On the 6th of March this year, obviously, where price was approaching an area. Tony had sort of an area there where you could expect a potential reversal from. Also looking at my analysis, also cool to see how that complemented with his. We had a confluence between an upward sloping pitchfork. You see this green line that price just pipped or ticked, and then we also had this downward sloping median line, and where they basically crossed is where one hell of a decline started from. At that stage, I was thinking we're potentially just going to see some sort of a decline, and all this crap that happened with VBS and all that sort of stuff. And price then decided to make a new low. Now, what I'm thinking here over the, let's say, course of this week, and according to what price patterns and price structure is telling me here, is that this low that we've seen here on the 13th might actually have been a very important low, meaning that price might be building its way higher now in what could potentially be a leading diagonal that's making 3 waves, downwards move, 3 waves, downwards move, and potentially now another 3 waves to follow. If we see that, then I'm going to view this as a leading diagonal, meaning that this could be the first sort of pattern leading into much higher prices, I would say over the next couple of weeks, maybe even months or so, meaning that this low that we've seen down here could potentially have been very strong. Strong as in potentially an important low for this year, if that makes sense. Price potentially making its way all the way back up here. But again, that's pretty far to go. But that is what I'm seeing in the charts at the moment. My only thing is here is that there's some very clear invalidation zones for this thinking that we've seen potentially a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4. Now, for a 5th wave to follow, price would obviously need to clear these previous highs, right? That was set last week. Now, that was at 4,009 1/4. If that does happen, we get a 3-wave move similar to what we've seen during these moves to the upside, then I think we in for another decline and then potentially a much larger move to the upside. All right, so that is one of the possibilities that I'm seeing here. The other one is that we've already peaked here, and similar to that pattern I've shown you previously, that this was potentially an ABCX, another ABC, i.e. a WXY or a double zigzag pattern, and this is then going to be a start of a very strong move to the downside. Now, the only way that we're going to know if this one's going to play out is if price would break this low where that very strong shooting star sort of looking candle ended, and that low was at 3,897 1/4. Now, hopefully, let's say by Friday, or not Friday, by Wednesday, when the federal fund rate comes out, or afterwards, hopefully if pricing breaks in either one of these directions, I'll have a clearer idea as to which buys I should be looking at here. Upwards to over the long term, or near term to long term, or still downwards over the short term. So very clear sort of lines in the sands here for me. Either one, if price breaks up here, that's sort of not confirms 100% there's no such thing in trading, but that's sort of going to make me think we're dealing with that leading diagonal and that prices could eventually move much higher. Or if prices then breaks this level, like I mentioned, that we already seen a corrective move complete and that we're going to see a break of these lows again. Again, by Wednesday, where price ever is going to trade, we'll just have to wait and see. I think a lot of market participants are going to be closely watching what the Fed's going to do with that rate. hike. Are they going to hike it, or they can keep it same, or whatever the story is going to be? And then, we trade accordingly. So have we had the profits to, or sorry, the levels to lock newsletter already? Then I think first target objective would have already been reached there at a projected range high. All right. The other thing is just from a market geometry perspective, with this pitchfork sloping to the downside, is that price has been respecting these angles really, really well. Now it's touched it once, it touched it last week, and it just touched it again. So if price were to break above that on the 4-hour, maybe even on the daily, and stay above this line, then that's also sort of a first indication to me that I'm potentially dealing with that leading diagonal that's still not completed. So you can even see during these little moves to the upside here, these three little moves we've seen here, right? 3 moves we've seen over here. Potentially right at there where we have that upper red warning line sloping downwards, as well with those projected range highs that's already been reached. This might be that one, potentially another one lower, and then another one up. So if that pattern completes, then it's going to be telling me, or at least in my mind, that we're going to go higher over the sort of medium to long term. But anyway, that's just my thinking. Pretty strong resistance there, in my opinion. I mean, it's been very clear to see. Just selecting 3 prior anchor points prior to price actually touching it. That time we had Tony on here last time. Rejection. Rejection. Are we going to get a rejection now? And since these levels that I mentioned, to make either one of these patterns basically work out, are so close to where price is currently trading, we should hopefully rather sooner than later know which direction at least I would be going with, or which sort of bias I should stick with, either on the upside or the downside. Right, then we have the NQ. NQ sort of been hovering here at the today's pivot point at 12,676. It already reached S1, so a bit weaker than the actual ES has been. S1 was already at 12,541. Also, support stepped in there. Price moved up a little bit again. So a bit of ranging sort of condition here currently on the NQ. So closely watch if you see a break today above this high on this current candle around 12,695. We could see a move to R1 at 12,783. I think if price was on a 4-hour close below these 2 lows here, the lowest one at 12,524.25, you could see potentially a deeper decline to S2, which is at 12,434. All right, so same thing, ES, NQ, YM for that matter, as well as gold, are going to be important to see how the markets react. Now, obviously, market participants react to whatever the Fed's going to do with the interest rates on Wednesday. YM, sort of similar thing, a nice big sort of downward move. Price closed right up towards upper end of that range on that 4-hour, busted through the today's pivot point at 32,195, and has just reached the R1 at 32,442, as well as that projected high deviation at 32,481. So again, where price is going to go intraday, potentially just watch these levels, see how prices close in relation to them. But for me, a bit of a large range here on the YM. And again, we'll also have to wait and see. It might be a little bit of a wait until Wednesday. But yeah, we're at least going to have Wednesday's session, but that federal fund rate will actually be after that session. So we'll see where things are trading by then, but potentially could expect a bit of sideways ranging sort of markets while the markets wait for that interest rate decision. Then we got the Russell. Russell, same thing. Move towards S1, 1,718. Just picked the pivot point today at 1,757. And has since reached the projected range high, where it's now found a little bit of resistance at 1,775 and trying to make its way lower again. On the Russell, a little bit different than the YM, obviously a different market, but it's sort of been making lower lows and lower highs, where the YM sort of been a bit more on a sideways sort of movement here. So again, we'll also have to just wait to see what happens on Wednesday. And I think by Thursday, when we have our last session of the week, we should have a better idea of which direction, or I should have a better idea, or thinking, should I say, of where the markets might be heading on the indices side of things. Gold, good, yeah, gold's been skyrocketing, right, with all this banking scenarios going on. I think last week we were looking at this area where I said price could potentially find resistance and move lower. I was expecting potentially a deeper correction. Now, a very good sort of example of how price reached the market geometry area. At that stage, we also, I think it was an R1 or an R2 that we had crossing right there where that upper red line is, which is what I call a warning line on the pitchfork side of things. Only had a slight decline, and price has since then busted its way back to the upside. So maybe if the Fed's gonna, decide not to hike too much or not hike at all this time around, then we potentially see a decline on gold. Price opened above today's pivot point, 1,969. Beautifully reached that projected range high. Why we like this indicator so much here at Ninjacators, because price tend to gravitate towards those levels really, really well, and they act as support and resistance really well. So already took out the projected range high at 2013.3. And something else I noticed here, just to show you a little bit of things on the market geometry side. Although price left the boundaries of this pitchfork, and this is a standard pitchfork, if I copy and paste that to the upside, we can see that we had another beautiful symmetrical move that just reached that confluence between that horizontal projected range high, nearly took out R1, but again reached an angular, in this case, resistance line. And now we're seeing a decline. So same thing with gold, potentially going to be affected like it does so many times with anything to do with interest rates. So we'll just have to see how that plays out with gold as well. So for the time being, I do think that the time is ripe for gold to potentially move lower, at least give us a correction. But then again, we'll just have to wait and see how that plays out, and again revisit things on Wednesday and Thursday. Gold, on the other hand, has been clobbered pretty badly, sort of in line with expectations. I think at the beginning of this month, we were looking at, even like last, towards the end of Feb, we were looking at a potential that this was just corrective. That was my thinking. We sort of, I think price reached this area over here where I thought a potential WXY double zigzag pattern ended. Now we had this beautiful, nice, strong move actually during one of these profit and noon sessions. I thought that might be the end of it, and that crude oil could potentially head towards new lows for the year. Then we got surprised by another move to the upside, changed the analysis, and reckoned that potentially it's a triple zigzag instead. So, trying just to adapt what the market's doing and not sticking with one sort of bias, but still in the overall bigger picture, thought that it was still corrective in nature. And we also, again, here had an area where price hit, I think it was a projected range high. At that stage, I think also we had an R2 or an R1, I can't really remember there, at that area, and a strong decline back downwards again. Crude, so oversold. Is it going to bounce now at the moment? We'll look at the bigger picture before I switch over to Tony here. But crude mostly of today stayed below its pivot point of 67.25, and has since found support at S1 at 64.66. Now, if you look at the bigger picture, this is a daily chart of crude oil. How low can it go? I've had this pitchfork here on my chart for an incredibly long period of time. This is already since last year. I think it was July. Again, similarly, using three most prominent anchor points prior to a decline. And you can see how beautifully this pitchfork lines on angular support and resistance acted, support, resistance, resistance, support, support, support. And then finally, we had a breakout down to the downside again. So I think in the bigger picture, there is some potential for more downside in crude oil, potentially back to the 50% retracement, assuming that this entire move since crude went actually negative in April 2020, that this is potentially just one hell of a big correction. So might even move towards the 50%, and that's just from that where it went negative. Again, this is not actually the right price for when it went negative. Should actually be looking at continuous chart. But yeah, it sort of moved, found support. When was this? That was in December last year at the 38.2%. And then hovered, stayed above this sort of lower median line, bounce, 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 and finally broke below it. So I think there's still some downwards potential, and crude oils is a very difficult one for me to call at the moment. I'm going to treat any sort of movement back to the upside as corrective. And then we'll obviously look at our levels to lock that's higher up on those dates. And also keep note of this line that's held as support so many times that could in this time potentially act as resistance. Right, so that's my view on the markets, guys. I want to give Tony as much time as possible today. Again, might be a bit of a quiet trading session or a few trading sessions leading into Wednesday, but we'll just have to see how things go. And then when that federal fund rate decision does come out, then we'll have to see which sort of those biases. I'm very interested in seeing what's going to happen with the ES here, whether that leading diagonal is going to take place, or was this it? If price doesn't break that and we see a decline, whether we can still expect a further decline. So we've got two scenarios here with very clear levels. Either one of those, if they're broken, will have me side with either the upside or the downside. And that's pretty much it, guys. If you got any questions for me now, then please let me know. Otherwise, I'll pass things back to Nathan, and then he can quickly introduce Tony again so he can get on with his... Is this the second last setup you're doing, Tony? I believe it is, yeah.
I believe it is, yeah.
Yep, second to last.
Penultimate is also another word for
penultimate.
Fun fact.
Another way to put it. Yeah.
So you heard it here first. Tony is here with the penultimate trade setup. Before we move right along, we'll just give you guys and gals a little space. If you had any questions for Richard, any questions about today's analysis, our levels to lock, we'll be happy to cover that for you. So please feel free to fire away in the chat if so. If not, I'm going to get to introducing our friend Tony here. So those of you who have joined us in prior sessions, you already got to know Tony a bit. You're familiar with him. So I'll just give you a couple of quick hits on him. And I do see we did have a question coming through from Neil, so we will get to that as well. But Tony is an independent trader based in Seattle, Washington. He spent a lot of years, many years, I believe it was like 18 years you were trading the YM. Correct me if I'm wrong, but then it is correct. Look at me nailing it. And then around 2020, you know, obviously the landscape changed, and he has switched his focus to the ES in a very heavy way, has seen sustained success trading the ES. So he's one of us. So we're very excited to have him here back today. But before I hand it back over to you, Tony, really quickly, Neil was asking about the ES and NQ levels. Did you just want to see those again, Neil, or did you have a specific question about them?
I think he's asking for those levels on the ES that I've shown, either being bullish or being bearish.
Trading range. Sure, yeah, if you just want to really quickly hit that again for him, and then, yeah.
I'm seeing if that bottom one's actually the right level, 389,725. Oh, for the Fed meeting. I mean, it's going to be a pretty large range, in my opinion. I think, like I said, on the ES, Neil, if the ES actually breaks the 4,925, so in a quarter level, then I'm going to be siding with a larger move to the upside at a later stage, i.e. a bullish sort of bias. However, if we see, I think, a break of 3,897 and a quarter without price taking out this high, then I would side and think that price is going to move and break these lows that were set on the 13th, i.e. that this entire move that we've been seeing pretty strong in nature is not over yet, but that we could then potentially still see a much deeper move to the downside. So I'm looking at patterns here. I'm looking at market geometry. Again, once we also have that levels to lock newsletter at that stage, which will unfortunately not be ready by the Fed meeting, then we'll have a bit more clearer intraday sort of levels to trade towards, and also see where price closes in relation to them, etc., etc. But those are your levels on the ES. They're the only ones I can really give you right at the moment. It's a bit more of a clearer pattern for me here on the ES. Either two sort of patterns that I'm working with and I'm thinking might be underway here. So either one or the other is going to take place by just basically looking at those levels and which ones will be reached first.
Excellent. Cool. Well, a quick peek at the NQ.
If 4009 gets broken, then my next target will probably be, then depends on obviously when that happens, because I'm also dealing with sloped angles here. But I think at least to take it 4036 to the upside. If we get a sort of similar swing to these moves to the upside we've seen here, there's also been a lot of symmetry between these swings here from a Fibonacci perspective. Then we could potentially see a move here towards 4036, 4037. Again, sort of trying to trade this or giving those levels right now. Especially if I'm working with angles here, it might be a little bit difficult. But yeah, if I think we get a break above the 4,925, then I think at the very least going to 4,036. Again, just my opinion. I don't take this as investment advice. But a break below 3,897, I think then we're going to see price target the 3,839 sort of level, or maybe even lower. All right, basically potentially reaching these lower median lines. It's not really been reached just yet. You see price fell short of it on 3 occasions. So that might still happen. Quickly on the NQ, you can see the price structure a little bit different on the NQ here, right? But similar sort of thing. Also potentially made these 3 sort of wave moves to the upside. Potentially one there. Second one, maybe busy with a third one. Oh, sorry, a third one that still needs to follow. So again, different markets, it's going to be sort of different levels. I would say if we break this high over here, and that was at 12,811 plus minus, then it's going to give us a similar sort of pattern, potentially that leading diagonal to the upside, meaning that this move is not done yet, but if it does break, that it's potentially going to mean that it's leading into a much bigger move towards, I don't know, over the short term or longer, medium term. So it's all about watching these levels as well. Again, different price action here. And like I said, we might just start seeing sideways movement into Wednesday's federal funds rate decision. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Sure. So yeah, absolutely. Thank you for revisiting
SPY
that
calendar call.
Yeah.
You're trading options, yeah.
Yeah. And another good reason to join us again on Wednesday and Thursday in the follow-up sessions this week too, as the dust settles. So very cool. Well, without further ado, now we're going to transition over to Tony Edwards from Trader Smarts. He's got a great presentation for us. He's going to show us a new trade setup, and then stick around. We'll leave a little room for Q&A, and he's going to share a very great trial link with you if you're interested in what you see. So Tony, without further ado, we'll pass you the reins and let you lead us.
Awesome. Thanks, Nate.
You got it.
And, thanks, Richard, for that analysis. So welcome back, everyone, to Profits at Noon. Just really quickly, my name is Tony Edwards, and I'm an independent trader. I will very briefly go over what I do. These are also on previous recordings, so I try not to spend too much time recapping the same thing. But so every day I'm producing a trading plan for 6 or 7 different markets. ES, YM, NQ, RTY, 6E, CL, and GC. The plan consists of support and resistance levels,
Uh-oh, it sounds like we might be losing your audio there, Tony, unless it's just me.
Yeah, I think he disappeared. Something happened there. I thought it was me because we've been having really bad internet here during today, but...
Okay. Well, hang with us, guys. You know, everything can't always go perfectly in these live environments. Tony, if you can hear us, it seems like your audio has dropped out for one reason or another, so we're just hanging tight for a second. Fire away in the chat if you can hear us, and maybe he'll just need to rejoin. So apologies for any issue here, guys. We do, every once in a while something unexpected can happen with these remote meetings and these internet connections. So we do thank you for your patience. Richard, I'd hate to put you back in the spotlight here, but rather looking at these dark screens, is there anything else you'd like to show us in the meantime?
Let me just have a look quickly.
Sure. We'll give Tony a chance to get that sorted, get back in. We do still have time for him to share that setup with us. So if he's able to rejoin, we will absolutely let him proceed. But for now, we'll just see what Richard's got for us.
Yeah, yes, just a bit of a more clearer chart here on the daily on the ES. Just a bit of a bigger picture view for you guys. Neil, those are those lines that I pulled in here on the ES, basically telling me whether one or the other gets broken, then that's going to be my directional bias for probably a few weeks to come. Again, also very interesting market geometry areas here that's been reached at that low. This was last year in October. Strong move to the upside, just sort of a better view of what's happened. You can here on this one see how prices failed to break above, and this was in Feb, above this low sloping or downward sloping median line. So price pulled all the way back recently to this center median line, and it's sort of like now hovering here between those very important lines for me. So I think if we get a break above here, I think, up to the upside, although a break to the downside would mean potentially much larger decline. But I'm almost starting to think that this low in October last year was potentially a very, very strong low. But that being said, I'm thinking whatever this was, and let me just get rid of that snap mode, that we potentially had a 1 expanded flat 2, another one up, another one down. It nearly broke these lows, and we're going to build our way slowly back to the upside. Now, I don't think this is going to be one hell of a quick, fast move like we've seen previously, but it might just be very, how can I say, volatile still. I think that is my sort of idea of what's going to happen in the bigger picture. But again, I'm sort of on the sidelines here. Like I've said, Neil, I want to see one of those levels broken either up or to the downside, and then that will give me my sort of directional bias. And I think if we do get another break to the upside, there's a decent chance that, I said, what was it, 4,036, 37 I was looking at, that price could potentially reach. Unfortunately, I can't tell you with options how quickly that will happen. Obviously, we're looking at time decay and all that. I don't know if you're trading weekly options or the monthly or whatever the case might be. But, once you have some of these large pitchforks on your chart and you start seeing levels respected and tested. Now, if you look at the upside, you want to look at areas that first need to be broken, and then they give you new targets. Now, where the price reaches and then declines again, we don't know. But if price then finally starts breaking these lines that seem governing this downward move that we've seen since last year, then that would also give a really good indication or credence to the idea that price actually bottomed, and that this was just one hell of a crazy, very large and volatile correction that potentially ended on October last year already. So yeah, I don't really have anything else prepared here. I was actually waiting for, or hoping Tony could do his thing. So
Sure.
maybe, is he back yet, or did you try to text him?
Yeah, I actually just texted with him. It looks like he's back in the session. Tony, let's see if we can get your audio.
Let me just stop sharing it again.
Perfect. Tony, are you with us? Oh, there it is, connecting to audio. So Tony is back in the house, everybody.
Awesome. All right. Back to Tony.
Possibly.
Maybe.
might be a Zoom adventure happening. I don't know.
Yeah,
if you
like I had on Thursday last
Yeah,
week.
I was gonna say, I think, a lot of us have been on the receiving end of some Zoom theatrics. The timing is less than desirable oftentimes.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, if we have, this issue today, we'll just get a chance to circle back to this, and we can have Tony back. We plan to have him back on Thursday, either way. So,
I think I'm back. Can you guys hear me?
There you are,
there he
Tony.
is.
Awesome.
He's back.
Okay.
Very
Sorry
cool.
about that.
Can't predict these things, but
Perfect.
yeah.
Right in the middle of a live broadcast. Could not plan that any better.
Well, I don't want to eat up any of your time here since we lost a few minutes, so I'll just fade into the mist here and let you continue.
Cool. So let me get back to it. So yeah, we're looking at the trade plan. So there's support and resistance numbers, contract notes that kind of describe if there's anything important that's going to be happening for the day, the macro technical view, which is more of a bigger picture analysis, a line in the sand, which is your decider of immediate direction for that trading session, and then the actual macro technical numbers, which you see down here, which are, again, bigger picture situations. So that's that. Let's take a look at today's ES real quick. This is what it looks like plotted on your chart. So and then you can pull up this written plan from, pull it back into the screen. You can pull up the written plan from right inside the indicator. And then you just see what I just showed you. So, here's today's ES. We opened right against the line in the sand. We had this push down. We flushed right through this range long zone. Just a quick note, like anytime we see a very strong move right through a level where that's just not respecting the level, there's a very high probability that that area will be tested from the other side. So you can see we came down into this highest odds long, buyers were found, and then we pushed back into the area that we had flushed through from below, gave it a test, and then actually came right down into highest odds long again and into this 38.97 quarter level, which was also exact confluence with Richard's level for like a bigger picture breakdown area. So I love seeing that when we have confluence like that, buyers did step in right there and push us back to the top of this zone that we flushed through. And then, we checked it again from above. So again, like anytime you see a move through a zone that's not respected, there's a very high probability that we'll test it from the other side. And we got that multiple checks before we resolved above it. Heading into an hour before cash open, buyers were found, and then we just had this move up above the line in the sand. So that's kind of how it looks today. And then I just point out real quick, some of you are asking about levels. This 40-15 quarter right here is my macro kind of line in the sand. So that there's confluence there with kind of like the center point of the angled lines that Richard has on his chart. I think that he had that 4009 and 4014, I think, was right along in the center point of his angled analysis. So there's a ton of confluence just sitting here at 4015 being, and I hate to, kind of like Richard, I hate to use the word confirmation because there is no such thing as confirmation in trading. Anything can happen at any time, but this is just a clear level that to be watching for if we resolve above it, below it, and then we can get some continuation in that direction on a bigger picture time frame. So let me go ahead and get back to our presentation. And let's look through the 6th trade setup. Again, the previous 5 were on previous profits at noon. So if you missed them, feel free to go back and take a look. And let's get right into it. So risk disclosure. Futures trading involves a substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for every investor. And an investor could potentially lose all or more than their initial risk capital. Risk capital is money that you can lose without jeopardizing your financial security or lifestyle. And when trading, only risk capital should be used. And only those with sufficient risk capital should consider trading. As always, past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. So We're looking at 7 trade setups. We've looked at the zone fade, consolidation breakout, consolidation pullback continuation, the impulse pullback continuation, the brother-in-law move, and today we're going to take a look at the VWAP pullback. So I'm going to repeat myself again here. You guys are probably getting sick of this, but it's just such an important point that for me, and just for anyone really, market context is super important when it comes to taking trade setups. If you don't have an understanding of what the current context is, then it's very hard to, frankly, do anything in the market. You need to have the understanding of bias and what's developing. And without that understanding of context, individual trade setups are really invalidated, in my opinion. So what do I mean by market context? Do we have a bullish bias, a neutral bias, or a bearish bias? And what is that bias on each time frame that you're looking at? And is there anything known on deck, like news event coming out, that could immediately change the bias? So when I'm determining market bias, I'll come in the morning. I'm usually only trading US cash session open until the European close, so for about 2 to 3 hours. And I immediately just look at my whatever chart I'm trading. Usually I'm trading ES or CO, and see where is price in relation to the execution target zone. So if we are trading, I come in and I see that price is pushed above range short, and we're trading above range short, then to me that's an immediate indication that we have a bullish bias, because buyers have been able to push price above the area where I'm expecting sellers to defend. Same thing is true for range long, etc. So then I just look back in time. Before I start trading for the session, I'll go back to Globex Open. On my execution chart, I will go through a review and see what we've done and what it's doing, and then make a determination of what it's likely trying to accomplish. And I take a top-down approach from this. I do this on multiple time frames. So the one caveat to market context is that anything can really happen anytime. So you can do all this analysis, come up with this great plan, and then at any moment, an outside force can just step in and completely throw a wrench in all of your excellent analysis. And there's nothing that we can do about this except manage risk on every trade. So all of these examples you can find by just Googling Trader Smarts. There's probably 300 charts on the website, a ton on the blog. Go to my media feed on Twitter. And most of these were pulled from there. So we looked at the zone fade. We looked at the consolidation breakout. We looked at the consolidation pullback continuation. We looked at the impulse pullback continuation. The last profits at noon, we looked at the brother-in-law move. And today we're going to look at the VWAP pullback. Again, if there's any questions along the way, I'm happy to take those in real time, or we can get them at the end. Doesn't matter to me. So I'll just get into this setup. So the VWAP pullback. So VWAP stands for volume weighted average price, and it's the average price of the session's trading based on both volume and price. So the VWAP pullback works best in a trending market. If you attempt to use a VWAP pullback on a choppy or a balanced day, it will likely result in getting chopped up. The VWAP pullback should only be taken when you can identify that we are in a trending market, and it requires a trending market. So retracement pullback to VWAP for entry, with the expectation that price will continue moving in the direction of the trend. And risk can be a few points on either side of the VWAP. So if you're going long in an uptrending market, you would have risk a few points below the VWAP, and vice versa if you're going short in a downtrending market. And I use both a cash session VWAP and a Globex VWAP. So let's just look at a couple examples here. So here's ES from June 2022. Again, context is always key. So I'm looking at the chart from Globex Open, and we have found buyers against range long. We're up against this MTS number. So this is an area of macro significance back in June. Sellers push us below, then we're just back to the MTS number, and then finally around the European Open, we get this breakdown from range long. We get a check back into it, a new low, and then we come back into the MTS number, and we're trading essentially the MTS number, right? US cash open. And one thing I'm always looking at is what's the biggest move of the session. So up until this point, the biggest move obviously had been down. Then we come in, this was some type of news. I don't know what it was. It was back in June of 2022, but you can see this candle was obviously news. This is when news comes in. We had the US cash session open, and now we've pushed above range short. So now the biggest move is obviously up. We come down and checking the line in the sand, and we eventually resolve above range short. Any move above range short targets the next execution target zone, which is highest odds short. We also had another MTS number up here at 42.55. So now cash session's open and we're getting this push up. So clearly we're in an uptrending market. We get this move down just above VWAP, another slightly new high, a push down into VWAP. So here's your entry. I move away, another move into VWAP, and then a move up into the target. The target being highest odds short of breaking range short. So, usually if these VWAPs, if we're in a trending market, generally the VWAPs are going to be farther apart. If we're in a choppy market, they'll be closer together. So cash VWAP and Globex VWAP I'm talking about. So I will treat each one of these usually individually or as a whole, just kind of depending on confluence of what's taking place in context of the overall market. Here's ES. Try to zip through these here. So we, open Globex, testing the line in the sand, found sellers. Was able to push above the line in the sand, came into range short. Sellers were defending range short. Sellers defended again. This looks like some type of news move right here. Maybe it wasn't. And then we came into cash session open. We tested into the line in the sand on cash session open, back to range short. Sellers defended again, and then eventually we're able to push above range short. So this is an indication, you can just look at price action. We're trending up. We make a low and against the line in the sand, and then we push above range short. So again, target becomes highest odds short. As long as we're sustaining above range short, we come down, get this test into the execution target zone. We actually don't test the VWAP here. Come against all these prior highs, push up, and then start moving to target. So this is an area where we have confluence with a break above the execution target zone. We have VWAPs and just pretty clear idea of what's trying to take place here. Here is ES again from back in June. So just Globex open, pretty much gaming out right against the line in the sand. And then this is our strongest move so far. We had this move up, then this is kind of like the most impulsive move in the session. And then cash sessions opens, we push above the line in the sand, and we get this move above this high and all of these highs. So now this is the new, like the strongest move that's taking place. Identify that we're potentially in an uptrending market. We'll get this pullback right on cash session open into these VWAPs. Your entry. We're just on the other side of VWAPs, and then we continue up. But if we're holding above the line in the sand, the target becomes range short. Come into this target, sellers defend again, and we're able to push above, and it's just uptrending. Again, if you guys have questions, just type them in the chat. I can take them now, or we can take them at the end. I think there's only a couple more examples here. So now we have a downtrending market, again, ES from June. So Globex opens, we almost test the line in the sand, come down, come into range long, buyers defend again, and then we're able to break below. Now we're just kind of gaming out against range long from above. Cash session opens. This VWAP is holding. You can see this red line right here is the cash VWAP. So it's starting on cash open, and then we get this move down into highest odds short. Highest odds long. So now clear downtrend. Buyers defend at highest odds long. Push back into VWAP. You can see that cash VWAP was initially defended by sellers, and then we ended up finding sellers against the full session VWAP back into highest odds long execution target zone, where buyers are defending. Another push up, slightly lower low here, another push up into cash session VWAP. Oops, okay, quit clicking on the chart. Cash session VWAP still downtrending, so here's your entry again. And then we reach into extreme long and just kind of flush into the close. Yes, again, so open, Globex open against the line in the sand. Buyers are defending this, so now we're holding above the line in the sand in the next TS number, and then push up. Cash session opens, and when cash session opens, we immediately push above range short. So sideways, start trending up. Again, trending market. Push back into cash session VWAP. I have on this chart, I just have the VWAPs being green if we're the cash session VWAP being green if we're trading above it, and red if we're trading below it. Pull back into the VWAP. That was, there's your entry on a trending day, and then up into highest odds short, where buyers are able to push above, and it just comes all the way up to extreme short. So another example of ES. Globex open, come into range short, sellers defend. We have the strongest move of the session right here. And then we're just kind of sideways, come into cash open, just really choppy market right here, right? Another test of range short. Buyers defend this VWAP here, and then we push above, top of range short, which sellers are defending, and then we break above range short. So again, biggest move of the session is up. Consider this a trending market. We get this move below range short and back against all these highs into 39.46 half TS number, into the confluence of these upturning VWAPs. Here's your entry. It's almost like an impulse pullback continuation trade. Here's your entry, back above range short. And then again, just like you can see, price action working its way higher. Now buyers are defending at a higher low, the bottom of range short. And then we close the cash session. Target becomes highest odds short, but we just the session closed and kind of ran out of time. But you can see this market is wanting to just move higher. And that's the last example. So Globex open against the line in the sand. Just kind of really going sideways against the line in the sand until European market opens. We get this push up into range short. Here you can see this is clearly like an iceberg right here. Seller offering out size. We get this, he gets pushed out. We get this little break above range short, and then immediately back below this consolidation of this previous iceberg in line with range short, and then sellers push it down to the line in the sand again. We come back to range short, and here cash session opens, and we get this impulsive move down right into range long. So impulsive move, trending market. Buyers defend the area that they're expected to defend, push back up into VWAP in line with 4301 TS number, in line with 4300 century figure, into these downturning VWAPs, downturning market. Here's your entry. And then a recheck of range long, get the break below, check from above this time, or check from, so break below, check from below this time, sellers defend, and it's just this big downtrend. So that was the VWAP pullback. We're going to look at the law of motion on Thursday, I want to believe, Friday, can't remember.
Thursday, yep. We'll have you back Thursday, assuming you're still willing to come back. And Richard and I haven't scared you off, but we'd love to have you back on Thursday for sure.
I'm absolutely willing to come back.
Very cool. Well, real quick, do you want to show them that trial? Let's get a link in the chat here for you too. Tony's got a really great trial. He's knocked a lot of barriers down to get in and get started with him. So I'm going to drop that here in the chat and let him tell you a little bit about it.
Cool. Yeah. So actually, one second. Let me just do something else here. Go like this. So yeah. So here's the trial. So the trial includes access to every market. That normally runs $347 a month. I'm giving you a 2-week trial for $97. Actually, I think it's $99. I haven't corrected this yet. Somebody pointed out last session that it was $99. Again, if you're happy to refund the $2, not a big deal. And normally that's $347 a month, and single markets are $77 a month. It includes a license for whatever platform you're using. There's 7 platforms that are currently supported. That normally runs $397 for a lifetime license, or $597 if you're using more than one platform, or you can lease it for $97 a month. I'm throwing that in there for free with this trial in partnership with Ninjacators. And note that this will rebill at $347 a month at the regular price after the 2-week trial. So if you want to take the trial for all markets and then maybe you only trade ES or CL, not a big deal. Just cancel the trial, sign up for the single market, send me an email, and I will keep your free not lifetime, but I will keep your free indicator license going for the life of your subscription for whatever market you are trading. And yeah, so feel free to check it out. Here to help. Reach out anytime via email. You can DM me on Twitter. And yeah.
Excellent. Cool. Well, we very much encourage you to hit that link. We have made it available here in the chat. As Tony outlined, not only are you getting access to his personal trade plans for all of his favorite markets, you're also getting that indicator thrown in there. So it's just a really great opportunity to get in, roll your sleeves up, and try everything out for a very low barrier. So thank you again, Tony, for providing that to our guys, to our audience. We're very appreciative of that. And this special offer is not going to be around forever either. So we do encourage you to hit that link. And again, we'll have Tony back on Thursday for that final setup. So we're very excited about that. Yeah, beyond that, I think unless anybody has any questions for Tony here today, we'll probably go ahead and wrap up in just a sec. Give everybody a chance in the chat if they had anything else. In the meantime, just encouraging you to hit that link if you are still with us. Coming up on Wednesday at our next Profits at Noon session, of course, at noon Eastern time, we do have a special guest from within the house, one Craig Hill, with whom some of you should be familiar. Craig's got some pretty cool stuff to show us on Wednesday, and then, of course, Richard will be updating us as the dust settles from these news events and everything that's going on this week. So please join us again on Wednesday at noon. Craig Hill of Ninjacators will be in the house, and then we'll be back on Thursday at noon with Tony Edwards from Trader Smarts and that final trade setup. So thank you both, Richard and Tony, so much for your time, for what you shared with us here today. We're very appreciative of that. And thank you to all of the audience here who joined us, who hung out with us, and spend your time with us here every week. So just going to mention one more time, love to see you all again on Wednesday, Thursday at noon Eastern time for Profits at Noon. So before we go, as always, a little chance for some parting wisdom, which has historically been along the lines of, not having a plan, you're planning to fail. But we'll just check with the guys real quick, see if there's anything new they want to give us, or maybe their best dad joke before we go.
Exactly that, Nathan. Exactly that. I don't have too much to update. I think that's a pretty important one.
Well, I'll hit us with one then really quickly before we go. Do you know why the Scarecrow won an award?
No, hit me.
He was outstanding in his field.
Oh, really?
So, for better or worse, you got that parting dad joke on the way out. Thanks so much. Joe says, great job, guys. Thank you for the guidance. Absolutely, Joe. Thank you so much for being here with us. We hope to see you at the next session. Again, Wednesday, Craig Hill will be with us. So we'll be back on noon Eastern. In the meantime, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to go to ninjacators.com. That phone number is plastered all over the website. Please give us a call, shoot us an email. We're always here and happy to help. So have a great week. In the meantime, we'll see you again on Wednesday for another edition of Profits at Noon. Thanks so much, everybody. Goodbye.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Tony. Thanks, Nate. And cheers,
guys.
everyone. See you on Wednesday. Bye-bye.